Okay, so are we ready to start? Or am I still
I think we
waiting?
are, Sandra. It's your show.
Okay. Hi everyone, I'm Sandra and I'm a venturer from Narrowing South and I'm part of the Reconciliation Working Group. And today I'll be sharing a little bit about our journey so far and how you can incorporate reconciliation into our scouting activities. And I want this to be an interactive and insightful session, so there will be some activities that you can participate in through the chat or by raising your hand. But firstly, of course, we have housekeeping, which you'll probably hear 200 times today. So thank you guys for attending. Please keep yourself on mute unless you're asked to share. Feel free to ask questions. We will have a short Q&A at the end. And if you have any questions, there was a link to an office form on the website. And please remember to abide by the Scout law, which is to be respectful. But firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we meet, learn, and care for in Scouting, and we recognize their continued connection to land, water, and community. I pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. My group is from Bunurong land, and you're welcome to share what traditional land you're on in the chat feed. But firstly, to understand our work and what I'll be talking about today, we need to understand what reconciliation is. So feel free to put your hand up or put it in the chat feed. Yeah. Anyone have any idea?
Sandra, while people find their hand up button or
Okay.
unmute, I think it is because I'm a multicultural Australian. So
Yeah.
my family are only a couple of generations here, and it's our duty to remember the people whose land this was before we arrived.
Okay. All right, shall I move on then? So Reconciliation Australia defines reconciliation as strengthening relationships between Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and non-Indigenous people like me for the benefit of all Australians. So now that we know what it is, the next question is, why do we care? Again, put your hand up or type your answers into the chat feed. Anyone? Okay. Thank you, Wombat, for typing in what land you're from.
So there's only a few of us in this session today, so you're pretty safe. Rob, I'm breaking all the rules. You are pretty safe to unmute and just join Sancha in these chats. Why have Scouts Victoria let Wombat have 45 minutes at this conference? Why have for the last 2 years I've been allowed to form a team? Why is reconciliation important to Scouting?
There are probably no wrong answers, so just say anything.
I guess so that everybody can live in harmony, that we're looking at everyone else's perspectives to be able to live in a country that moves forward together.
Yep. And Narelle has put her hand up.
Yeah, I'm having some tech issues, so if it cuts out, it's me. I think it's important, in Scouting that we're inclusive, we respect all cultures and all people and, different abilities that we all come with. And I think it's as much about learning from the past as it is about, moving forward and, how we can work with resources and respect and, everything that we have. So it's not about, being stuck in the past and the history of what was, but how can we best move forward and, include and respect and all of those sorts of things.
Yeah, I think in terms of specifically why it's important to Scouting, like everything that Narelle said, but also it's a broader issue in society as well. And as Scouts, we should be dealing with those and tackling those head on as well.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? No? Okay. So about us. So the reconciliation.
Sorry,
Oh,
Sancha, I'm just
sorry.
having a bit of, I'm on my
Sorry,
phone,
my
so I kind
bad.
of raise my hand and unmute and do the whole box and dice. So,
Okay,
but
sorry,
I
my
think
bad.
for me, two things. I want to be able to find a way to talk authentically and honestly and respectfully about the past. And also, I feel like one of the things that is really of interest to me, I guess on a fairly personal level, is I think that there's a kind of spirituality that is a bit lost in kind of modern day Australian culture that I would love to see embraced. And I think that through reconciliation, we can probably find a true Aussie spirituality, if you like.
Yeah. Was there anyone else? All right. So a little bit about us. So the Reconciliation Worker Group was formed in 2020, and we're a team of approximately 8 people led by Wombat. And our aim is to help Scouts Victoria connect with Indigenous custodians. And our original plan was to create a reconciliation action plan for Scouts. However, for the time being, we have focused on program-related activities, including for VicJam, and resources for reconciliation activities. So currently, we're in the process of recruiting Indigenous older youth and adult members with a view to form a reconciliation committee. Last year, we visited the RAP idea for a little bit, put together for a video for Reconciliation Week, drafted some challenge cards and more. And now I will play said video. Hopefully that works. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tori, a rover at Eltham. Welcome to the special clip for Reconciliation Week.
And I'm Ella, a scout at Caroline Springs, and we thank you for stopping by to hear us discuss reconciliation.
Each year, National Reconciliation Week is held between May 27 and June 3rd, and you might remember the video our friends made last year to mark the week and give us some simple actions every unit and event could try.
If you missed it, it's on YouTube.
The theme for this year's National Reconciliation Week is Reconciliation Takes Action, More Than a Word.
And as the week reminds us Scouts how we can take action to support Scouting and the wider community continue the important work of reconciliation.
As members of Scouting, with our units we can explore how, as young people and as groups of young people like our patrols and units, can contribute to reconciliation as active participants.
But first, some updates from last year's videos.
You may have seen an update of the Scout Ceremonies Guide came out at the end of 2020, and Acknowledgement of Countries have been included.
Like this video started with an acknowledgement of country, when does your unit use one? Maybe every opening, maybe at special nights like Peak Award presentations. Your group will make it work for them, but it's a great way to live our Scout promise and showing respect.
Last year's video showed 2 members doing an opening with an acknowledgement. It could be good to show your patrol and unit leaders.
And last year's video told you about our Reconciliation Advisory Committee at Scouts. This group has been working hard, including looking at how exploring First Nations culture could be used in the Special Interest Awards and sharing ideas nationally on a possible reconciliation badge for members of all ages. The team is seeking members of Scouting from Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander background to join. Email the State Commissioner of Diversity and Inclusion.
But this is 2020, so let's look forward.
The theme this year asks for action, so what action can your unit or group take?
You could program something now for Term 3 or Term 4 that explores local Aboriginal culture.
You could look at flying the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags alongside the Australian flag at your hall and events.
If you're running a big event or gathering in Scouting, you might like to arrange a Welcome to Country.
And just checking who are the traditional custodians of the land you're about to do an activity on as part of the planning process. For an example, I've applied to attend VicJam, so I looked up that where we camp in Elmore is the Tungarang land.
And Reconciliation Week is only one of many opportunities as a community we can reflect on the rich Indigenous history and culture in our communities. Consider NIDOC Week, 4th of July 2021 to 11th of July 2021, or International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples on August 9th, for example.
From all of Scouting to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities know that Young people are committed to actions, not just words.
And to all Scouts, remember we can make a big impact, supporting our communities to explore reconciliation on local levels.
Let's keep up the work over Reconciliation Week and into the new year.
All right. That's not letting me work. Hang on. Hang on, that's not okay. Sorry about that. There we go. Hopefully that works now. So that was the video that we talked about, and wants to play again one minute. So throughout my journey in the Reconciliation Working Group, I created and maintained a map of every Victorian Scout group and what traditional land they sit on. And this map actually originally started with me just visualizing district and region boundaries for fun, but it's now evolved into a much more useful resource. Anyone can use this to find out what traditional land they sit on for the purpose of connecting with the local traditional landowners and as a reference for your acknowledgement of countries. I'll show you how it works with my group, and then you can open the link in the chat feed and have a go at yourself and find your group. And if you didn't already put what traditional land you're on at the start of the session, you're welcome to put it down now that you found what land you sit on. So that's the link. And if we open that, so that's what the map looks like. So there's two ways to find a group. You can either search it up or you can zoom in and find it like how you would find a location map. So I'm from Narrowland South. Now you need to click on the blue dot, not the gray one. And there's either one of two, you can do one of two things to find what traditional land you're on. You can either take note of what color overlay sits on your group and then look at the key on the left-hand side. So black is Bunurong people. Or you can click on that color overlay and it'll also give you the name. And there's also a link to a website of those traditional landowners that you can use to contact them to run a night or something. So if everyone could open that link on their devices and have a go, that would be awesome. And yeah, also share what land you're on once you found it. All right, Darren's from Bunurong, like me, and Narelle and Chris as well. And yep, Wombat, Tonka, and Okolai. Megan's from Wurundjeri. All right, so we're going to move along now. So at Big Jam, Jason Kerr ran an activity on the Our World base where Scouts got to have a go at playing a didgeridoo and learn a little bit more about Indigenous culture. The Big Jam footprint map also lists the traditional landowners of all the locations of the expeditions, and some expeditions, such as the Climate Captains one, which I was at, utilize this through an acknowledgement of country every morning and our scavenger hunt activity. So that's a basic summary of the key things we've done as the Reconciliation Working Group. Next, I'll talk about some ideas on how you can incorporate reconciliation into your scouting life. But firstly, if anyone has done any reconciliation or Indigenous activities either in or outside of Scouts, please share them in the chat feed or raise your hand. Has anyone done anything either at work or?
I'm our reconciliation action plan officer at my workplace, and we've set up some really great stuff during the last, this is our second reconciliation action plan. Of course, we're able to transfer so much, and it's through education and care, and so I'm able to implement so much of it in our Scout group, and because we're pretty good up here at the primary schools too, so a lot of our primary school age children are very good in reconciliation actions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's obviously part of the school curriculum now, but I haven't seen too much as part of my school, except in year 10. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on. So these are some key events on the annual calendar for reconciliation and the 2022 dates that you may want to commemorate either at Scouts or by yourself. In late May and early June, we have National Reconciliation Week, and this year's theme will be released next month. The dates of the week are the same every year because they recognize two very important milestones. The first is the anniversary of the 1967 referendum, where Australians voted in favour of two changes that reduced discrimination between Indigenous Australians and the rest of the population, which were that we would all be subject to the same laws, and Indigenous Australians were also to be part of the census, which gave them visibility and access to essential funding and services that they were previously deprived of. Second milestone is the High Court Mabo decision, which ruled that it was wrong for Captain James Cook and the British to declare Australian land terra nullius, or nobody's land, when they settled in 1788. On the 3rd to 10th of July is NAIDOC Week, and this year's theme is Get Up, Stand Up, Show Up, to show that we must continue to fight for change and reconciliation between Indigenous Australians and the rest of the population. August 9th, which also happens to be my birthday, is International Day of the World's Indigenous Peoples, and September 4th is Indigenous Literacy Day, which celebrates the stories and language of the Indigenous communities of Australia. So how can you connect with your local custodians? Here are some ideas on how you can connect with them at the hall, on camps, and in your own time. You can also contact your local traditional landowner office to see if they'd like to join you on an activity or provide some more ideas on how you can both connect together. But one of the simplest ways is to do an acknowledgement to country, like what we did at the start of today's presentation and at the start of the video. And this is usually done at the start of every meeting. It can be as basic or as detailed as you like, and there are 3 examples on the screen. You can do a general one, like example 1, reference your traditional landowner, like an example 2, or say a more detailed one, like an example 3. Google has heaps more examples, and anyone can say this, not just an Indigenous Scouting member. So I've given you some ideas, and now we're going to spend 5 minutes, I think, on Jamboard all together, putting down what other ideas we can think of, and then we'll review some of them at the end. So please open that link on your device and spend 5 minutes adding whatever, I guess. And then we'll go through them.
Now, Sancho, remember that I'm almost 40, so I'm ancient. How do I use this website?
I thought you used it before.
Don't assume any knowledge here.
Okay.
So
I think that might have been a leading question to help other people too.
Sorry, my bad. And then you can click, so you open it and then you click on the sticky note and then write whatever you want. And then, yeah, press save. And then there you go, and you can move it around. Wonderful. Okay. I'll put these other ideas in it too. So you can Oh, why do you need to install an app? It should be available on the website, but apparently not. There we go. And that was the other ideas. Those were the other ideas. All right, so someone has said that we can fly the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags alongside our whole Australian flag. We can discuss reconciliation and First Nations culture as part of a unit night. And I'm not really sure what local means, so you could expand on that. Oh, there we go.
Sancha, can you go over how to post that again, please? I'm having issues.
Oh yeah, all good. So you see the fourth
Click on there,
button
yeah.
is a sticky note, and just type whatever, change the
there.
color,
Great.
press save, and then it will automatically show up. All right. They're all on top of each other now. Someone said parks Vic often have trails or heritage trails or walks that include information, and it's a great way to increase cultural awareness, and someone has drawn a link between them too, so I guess you could do it as part of a unit night. Go for a walk on the Yarra River that shows key trees, cooking and eating bush foods. What kind of bush foods do they eat? I don't know, damper is like the main thing I can think of.
The bush foods one was me. I mean, you get someone in and talk to you about it. I mean, that's the whole point, right? We don't know, so.
Fair enough.
We actually have been part of the Monong Festival the last few years, except because of COVID, ruined that. But that's along the Merry Creek where they actually harvest the yams and they cook them up and they do all this sort of stuff with the local community, which is kind of cool.
Right, near us is a park that has artworks made to tell First Nation stories. Where is that park? I'll give you 2 more minutes, so 11:10 we'll move on. It's not working for Molly. Molly, you're free to put your idea in the chat feed and I can just put it on. And same with Darren if you can't get the website working. There. All right, Molly says that they have a resource library that people are welcome to borrow from. I'll put that up. And or tell some yarns, I'm assuming, or Megan says tell some yarns or invite someone to do so. I'll put that up too. All right, we're gonna move on now. Okay, so another, oh, no, we already done that. Another way to incorporate Indigenous culture into your daily life is through this newish initiative from Australia Post. And if you're a bit like Wombat and you really like your snail mail and parcels, you can include the traditional place name in both the recipient and sender addresses underneath their name. For example, if you're going to send something to someone at the Victorian Scout Centre, you'll write Wurundjeri Country or Wurundjeri Land between their name and the address. So this is a map of the Aboriginal languages in Victoria, and Melbourne University actually has a really cool project called 50 Words, where they aim to have a database of 50 words in every Indigenous language in Australia. It's still a work in progress, but you can still explore the other languages if yours isn't included yet. So the languages included are mainly centered around the Northern Territory right now, but all the red languages do have 50 words attached to them. And you can, if your local one happens to be on it, which I don't know if any of them happen to be, you can do it as part of a unit night where you explore some of these words, or you can invite someone to teach you guys. So these are some further resources that you can go on and visit. And at the bottom is also a bunch of cultural centers that you can go on an excursion to. But don't worry about copying all of them down, because we've got a Google Doc that has all of the links that we've talked about today, which I will put in the chat feed in a second. So if anyone has any questions, you can put your hand up or put in the chat feed, and Wombat and I will try our best to answer.
As you sync up your questions, I want to take a moment to thank Sancha. Sancha is one of the many young leaders on our team doing a fantastic job. Ventra is much better at technology than Wombats. It's a big task to come and present in front of the leaders of adults when you are a youth member. So thank you, Sancha, for coming and doing that so well. As people think of their questions, and we'll watch for hands going up, it's important to note that everything we mention here are just ideas and steps. They're not a checklist. You can approach this in the way your unit councils, your groups, your district, whatever part of scouting you manage, you can use these ideas or other ideas, because what happens contextually here where I live in Gippsland is not going to be the same as what happens in, for example, the Wurundjeri or the Bunurong land. So Sandra, I think Narelle has your first question for you.
Yep. Did Cheese have one too? Oh, is that a mistake?
Cheese can go first if he wants, or I'm happy to.
That was applause rather than a hand up.
Oh, okay.
I was just echoing Wombat's sentiments on Sancha's efforts in putting this together today.
Thank you very much. Okay, Narelle, go first.
Thank you. Look, I'm not going to lie. I think in my, upbringing, I'm not exactly old, but, there were certain things, and, sometimes cultural awareness and things weren't necessarily what we spoke about. And I know that it's an important part of what we do and, how we move forward. And I'm super interested in these sorts of things. Personally, I moved from the northern suburbs to the south a couple of years ago, and my Ventura unit is actually made up of 2 units. So we've got the Bunurong Ventura unit, which is Ballum Park, and we have the Tangenong Ventura unit, which is South Frankston's Venturas, and we meet together, and I believe both of those names are traditional Aboriginal words, or Bunurong's the area, that were approved many, many years ago. But for me, we want to explore more. I personally want to explore more what it means, where the names came from and those sorts of things. But I guess it's a bit of a tricky one, because I don't want to go in, not knowing anything, being the Australian who grew up here. And I don't want to, head to an organisation and be insensitive by questions and things that I ask. Have you got any tips around, what's okay to talk about and ask versus, what is more sensitive? I don't want to just assume that we can go in and ask anything, but it's a bit of a tricky one.
One that you can do that one.
Sure. And look, it is going to, I guess, be a little bit in context of where you go. So, for example, in Frankston, the Bunurong people have a bit of a cultural hub that they invite the wider community in. And so as such, that would be a place you could go and pretty openly talk about anything and everything. Whereas it might be a bit different. If you invite an elder, you might have to have that what works for them, what doesn't, and do that sort of way. Elders work differently across all the different nations here in Victoria. And so again, the context of how they hold those roles and what they represent within their communities can be a little bit different. And so that does affect how they approach guest speaking. And so it's really build up those local contacts and those local opportunities. Otherwise, use somewhere like the Melbourne Museum, and I can't remember the name of the centre, but it's in Sanch's list of places to visit, or the Koori Heritage Trust at Fed Square. Both of them, this is their purpose, is to connect groups like ours with the Aboriginal communities of Victoria.
Because the tricky thing is, apparently, and I trust it, we have official approval to use the names, both of them, but where does that sit? Because that was, forever ago that happened. So
I know that
we want to make sure that
the group leader of Ballon Park had me double check it for their Venture unit. And we know that Auntie, her name, it should be on the top of my head because she helped us name the 4th Williamstown Scout Hall 2 years ago.
Yeah, cool.
But when we were doing that process, the elder who came and supported that confirmed for the group leader of Ballon Park. I'm not sure if we've done a double check on the other one, but this does happen. We get permission for names, and then obviously the governing team change at these organisations. So it's always good to refresh. And I know that Uncle Colin Hunter from the Wurundjeri has worked very closely with us over Venture Unit and Rover Crew names across the section of Melbourne that is Wurundjeri land. We might move to Megan's question because Megan's waited there patiently.
In response to your question, Narelle, I actually asked that question in a work context because I felt like in an effort to try and do things right in the past, people have done things really, really wrong, and I'm nervous to kind of, make things worse. So, and the person that the speaker that said to me, firstly, be prepared that you are going to get it wrong. So get ready to be wrong, and also educate yourself. So just read, and educate yourself. So I thought that was 2 practical things that was my question. I wanted to ask Sancha or others, I'd love to kind of be in the loop as far as these sorts of conversations and be able to feed things to my group leaders, the practical things that they can do. Like I love the 50 words project and those sorts of things. What's the best way for us to kind of stay in the loop on these sorts of things and, have a voice and be helpful?
What do you do?
We are in the works of developing a reconciliation page that will sit on the Scouts Victoria website. And that's where things like the links document that Sancha has prepared, things like our YouTube videos will be. Right now, you can find the 2020 and the 2021 reconciliation YouTube videos up on the Scouts Victoria YouTube account. And both of them are youth-led projects. And so really good that if group councils want to go watch them, it's really good that they can then share them with their unit councils. It's very practical to that level of scouting. In the meantime, until that website's active, we publish things, particularly in the lead up to Reconciliation Week and NAIDOC Week, in the Be Informed newsletter. And hopefully you're all nerdy enough that you don't just delete those newsletters each week, and you can hit the search button and find, because obviously anything we publish for these topics in 2021 could be really reused in 2022, no problem. So if you didn't get to them in 2021, you can reuse them. So hopefully there's some helpful places. And we do have the Diversity and Inclusion Facebook page, so Scouts Victoria Diversity and Inclusion, and again, a place that we have topics all the time and ideas come up, or if there's a community event that Scouting's been invited to be a part of, that we sort of promote it there.
Thank you.
And Whip has a question for you, Sancha.
For me, okay. All right, you may. No, they have disappeared.
Sorry, I'm working it out.
Oh,
I'm
all good.
phone because I couldn't get it to work from my laptop. I don't know. Our rover crew, Wurundjeri rover crew, have come up against some adverse contact from Indigenous people, and they were having real trouble trying to find out any kind of information. Apparently, they had permission to use the name many years ago, but they have struck a brick wall, and it's a passionate thing for them to have to consider changing their name. But I don't know whether they've actually made contact, and I didn't realize that they had you guys as a resource to be able to help out with finding out whether it's still okay to use the name at the moment. So I'm just...
Whip, I think the best thing to say would be for the unit leader of that rover crew to make contact with myself as the State Commissioner, and I'll work through that with them. The Wurundjeri are fantastic at working with Scouting. They've worked with us on a lot of naming projects. And Uncle Colin Hunter has worked with us a number of times on doing Welcome to Country. So we've definitely got the people and the networks that we can assist this rover crew, and that if there does need to be updates and modifications, because again, what was okay at one stage of Scouting may not necessarily have continued as the world has moved on, and boundaries have changed and all sorts of things have occurred in our wider community. So we can definitely support with the relationships and the networks needed. So no Ventry unit or rover crew who might be using First Nations language would be unsupported if they need support in that area.
Excellent. That's great to know. Thank you.
Were there any other questions or anything else anyone wanted to say? Could be anything.
We might be towards the end of our time.
Okay.
I don't know. Rob's in charge of that. He'll indicate in some way.
All right. So I'd like to thank everyone for attending once again, and hopefully you've all learned something today. And we'd like to see what you get up to. So I'm going to drag Wombat into this. That's his email. Spam him with like anything relevant, I guess. And again, you still have access to the Jamboard and all the links, which I have pasted into the chat feed. And I would like to give a huge thank you to Maddie, Wombat, and Lachlan from the Reconciliation Working Group for helping with these slides, and to the rest of the group as well for making everything that we've done a possibility. Thank you, everyone, and have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was great.